Hi, Scarlett. Pleasure for you to join the conversation around Secrets of Talent. Really appreciate your time.
Hi.
Scarlett, we've known each other for a number of years now, and we've been bouncing back and forth. And I've been watching your journey from competitive life in The Apprentice, whilst you were during the Apprentice, to now growing this venture. And one thing that I've learned from is being inspired by people's journeys, and it'd be interesting to kind of see whether kind of learn from your journey as an entrepreneur in the recruitment industry. And so, what inspired you to set up your own recruitment firm?
Yeah, hi, by the way. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Um, I think a number of things. I think I've always been really entrepreneurial. I always thought like I was a bit of a know-it-all, which obviously now I know very little. When I was at school, I thought I was the teacher, but again, I was not. So I think there's always been an element of me that's kind of wanting to work for myself and probably not realise there's always shareholders. But for me, actually, I have really been fueled by purpose and passion, specifically when setting up Harper Fox Partners. For me, everything I think that I've seen, that I've experienced, I've wanted to change that into a really positive experience. So the main kind of drivers for me have been, first of all, because I personally believe that businesses should reflect the diversity of society that we live within. So I want to see boardrooms that are reflective of that and businesses that are reflective of that. And that certainly wasn't my experience when I first went into the industry as a biracial female with two daughters of colour as well. And I asked at that point, I asked myself really, can I be the CEO of this major global recruitment company at the time? And truthfully, the answer for me was, I think I can, but actually I don't see that. So I don't know if that's an option or an opportunity for me. So I set out ultimately to be the change that I wanted to see. And, I'm really proud to say that actually 42% of our placements now are senior females and ethnic minorities within STEM sectors. And we're very much living the purpose to reimagine boardrooms and, yeah, as I say, make sure they're reflective of the society that we live within.
Was it always something that you wanted to get into? What was it when you were growing up? What was that one thing that you wanted to be? And then there must be some sort of link to kind of what you wanted to be to what you are now.
I think I've always been honestly very entrepreneurial. So I always wanted to make money.
Yeah.
I always wanted to make money. I moved out at 16. I was in supported accommodation. And one thing I understood was I need to make money, I need to work hard, and I need to kind of hustle. Like I very much had that mentality from a very young age. And I was saying earlier, I was speaking with Eon earlier actually, and I was saying to them, my first job was 13 as the milkman's assistant, and I pitched myself to be his assistant. So I think it was probably always going to be something that was around business. But what I've really realised more and more so is that not only am I excited by business and people, so then recruitment and exec search is a perfect synergy, um, I'm also really driven by purpose now as well. And that's come a little bit later.
And why exec search, or why sort of something very sort of senior within the talent pipeline?
Um, because it's a tricky one, right? It's really nice speaking at early entry levels because then you've got this really influential place.
Because everybody's in that, and I mean it myself. Everybody enjoys the early talent space because
Yeah,
there's a lot more vibrancy in terms of working with young people, etc., etc.
100%.
But working within the sort of executive level is a very
It's different.
specialist area.
Yeah, it's different. I'm ever a learner. Like I'm such a fan of continuous improvement, of trying to get better, and I love to surround myself with people that are doing phenomenal things. And ultimately, when you're speaking to senior people in different sectors with different life experiences, with different achievements, for me personally, I feel like I'm learning all the time, and it challenges me. So I actually think that's probably why I was drawn to it. I want to learn. I want to be the best that I can, and there's nothing better than being around those people that have been there, done it. Some are great, some of them aren't. Some of them have made mistakes and great learns, and they can tell you all about that. And in doing so, I think you actually have great influence both over businesses and what they shape and what they look like, but actually over sectors as well. Start to understand, okay, how is renewables going to work, renewable energy going to work in the UK? What does the impact on the US mean to the UK market? All of those things. And yeah, I've just found it to be highly, highly interesting and influential too.
And presumably, you kind of work a lot with a lot of recruitment companies, but also with as you mentioned, some of the larger organizations across the country, and I know you do some international work. What are some of the challenges that companies are facing when it comes to recruiting top talent, and more importantly, how can employers navigate some of these challenges effectively?
Yeah, I mean, that is like the $1 million question, isn't it? I bet you get asked the same thing all the time.
From an early talent perspective, yes.
Yes, 100%. So where we see it mostly is early talent and is senior. Because they're like,
Yeah.
hold on, there's not enough talent at these two entry points, and there's not enough talent at senior, often because perhaps there's a deficit in skills in early talent. So, particularly working in the STEM sectors that I work within, of course, there's a huge deficit of talent and skill set, particularly in the UK. So, the first thing I would do is encourage anybody that you know that's younger to come into our sectors, which you're obviously already doing. Um, but what can businesses do at the moment, which was your question? I'd say there's a few things. The first thing I would suggest is that businesses consider candidates from alternative sectors with transferable skills that they can bring into their sector or organisation. I've seen that work really well. Some brilliant diverse perspectives and experiences come that way as well. Secondly, I would absolutely recommend investing in your internal development programs to incorporate obviously training and upskilling of current teams, but also clear succession planning strategies as well to maintain your talent. And then we know exactly who's going into what position or what potential talent we have in the business to go into what position next. Another one that I think is really important, probably because of the sectors that I work in and all the elements I'm so passionate about, but is to really and truly cultivate a culture of inclusivity and development for everybody. And I think there's a lot of organisations that talk that talk. Unfortunately, there's a fewer amount that walk the walk. And, you know, for me, I think actually as an organisation to stand out, to secure incredible talent, you need to be bold in what you stand for and bold in what you stand against. So, yeah, I would say those are the key things. And then, of course, I'm going to pitch retained because because the talent pools are so niche.
Yeah.
My recommendation would be to work with a partner that works on a retained or a search basis for more senior talent, because honestly, there's such a lot of mapping and candidate approaches that are needed to secure the right talent for an organisation.
Do you notice that some certain sectors find it much more difficult to retain talent at senior level, but also do you find that it's something to do with the uh, perception of a particular sector?
No, I. Tell me a bit more what you mean, and then I can
So,
make sure I answer it.
so for example, if you're if you're working within the energy sector, and it could mean that, or if you're working with the retail sector where it's high turnover of staff, does that produce a negative or a perception to hiring talent for long term roles?
Yeah, I think potentially. I think that's a really good point actually, and I think it depends sometimes what's happening as well externally. Because
Mhm,
you know, look, we work in energy, and when we're hearing about big top brands within energy that are reporting huge profits,
mhm.
and then there's issues perhaps going on in the organisation, and people are facing redundancies, then naturally it doesn't give the sector a great name. So yeah, I do think politically what's happening in the landscape does impact whether people want to work in certain sectors. I also think that not everybody understands, especially at younger ages and actually more mature, what sector opportunities there are in different sectors.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just navigate to maybe what we saw our friends do, what our parents may have done, what we see around us, the people around us do, and not realise there's actually incredible opportunity to go and be the CEO of an energy business, and you're like, huh, what are we talking about? So my advice would be go out there, explore and understand, think about the things that excite you inside, and then see how you can align those to sectors and opportunities and really utilize those God-given skills.
And sort of linking a lot of these changes in within Tampa, technology must play a big role within how you recruit such talent. What sort of things have you seen over the course of your career in recruitment around technology and how that's? I'd like to kind of put a positive spin on it, but also seeing how it actually had a positive impact on recruiting talent. But then
Increases.
also, what are some of the challenges that could technology bring to recruiting talent?
Yeah, absolutely. A great question. So I would say there's no doubt about it. There's the whole AI thing that we're all like, oh, what's happening? But actually, I've seen the automated CV writing tools. We've obviously seen all the AI chat stuff, and I've seen some really good market mapping tools as well, which I personally think are really positive, because what that means for me anyway, and for our team and for our industry, I think, is that we can get stuck into the core stuff, which is really connecting with our candidates, connecting with our clients, really understanding, looking at kind of the motivations and the cultural fit piece, which, you know, like I say, I think it's only a positive thing. So hopefully some of that AI stuff can help us to be a bit more smarter, as well as more diligent in terms of some of the kind of initial first stages and mapping side of things. So yeah, that's probably the first thing. The second thing is, I think we've definitely seen this big transition to video. I mean, you and I are here now, aren't we, doing a video podcast, which is a pleasure. We've certainly seen that in video interviews. It means that we can do 10 meetings back to back in a day, where we would have been travelling to London and back and it would have taken the whole day. So again, I think that's really positive. All that said, though, I'm a real strong believer in meeting people in person, connecting with the candidates, really feeling the energy, and more importantly, for the candidate to feel the energy in that organisation. You know, they say the most influential person in your life is your line manager. Can you
Hmm.
imagine that? You know, so that's who will have so much influence. So we need to make sure that, yeah, that they live and breathe kind of what the organisation stands for, or vice versa, and that connect is there. So I think I'm much like a believer in hybrid working. I feel that same way around kind of video interviews and video assessment as well. Um, and then I think probably the final thing that we're seeing is video CVs.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Yeah, so video CVs and video portfolios. Um, I think it's the way forwards. I think it's the way forwards. I do. What have you done? What are you about? You know, you get a real feel for someone. Where we've got to be careful with that is where conscious and unconscious bias can creep in.
Yeah.
So let's be honest. As a
Do
member,
I mean, quite interesting, and I think this is more of a sort of reality check for the industry.
yeah,
Is there a risk of trying to use technology to replace the humans involved in the recruitment process?
yeah. So we did a white paper around this actually, and our conclusion was, after a lot of research and interviewing, no, I think it's going to be very difficult in our industry. I think there's elements of the process that can definitely be taken away. I mean, what we've just seen, the first automated McDonald's, haven't we?
Yeah.
So there's definitely elements, but I do genuinely feel we're in a people business, and I think that you need people to be in that people business, quite honestly. Will
And
the role evolve and develop? Yes, I think it will. It'll go more into assessments and stuff, I think.
and critically as well, empathy is a big thing that is
Yeah,
missing from a lot of these um, sort of things, some of these tools as well, which
100%.
unfortunately you can't really find. Now, I want to touch on one last question, which
Yeah.
I know I haven't sort of planned this question, but I'd ask it. Mentorship.
Yes.
You've got a very public mentor in terms of your role and the work that you do.
Yes.
But generally throughout your career, what has, and particularly within the recruitment industry, what has having a good mentor meant to you, and what advice would you give to somebody, like myself or anybody else out there to listen to this, about what they could do to find a mentor right for them? I mean,
Yeah.
you went through a bit of a rough ride to get a
A difficult
mentor.
process, that one.
Yeah, but a rough ride. But I'm sure not everybody's going to be in the same position, but
Yeah.
certainly people will be in a position where they will be looking for a mentor.
Yeah, for sure. A fantastic question. So my mentor, technically, or business partner, is Lord Sugar. And actually, he's got fantastic grounding in business. Obviously, he's clearly successful, but quite honestly, he doesn't always understand the search and recruitment processes. So that has been an interesting one for us to navigate at times. So on the back of that learn, I would actually say is that you kind of want someone from a mentor and coaching aspect that maybe looks at different elements of your life, and their expertise are in different elements. So, for example, Lord Sugar's fantastic in terms of business, absolutely superb. Then, for me personally, I would consider looking at someone that is where I want to be or has done what I'm trying to do before. So, ideally, has scaled a recruitment slash search business to a certain point, maybe acquired another business or bought out their investors or sold that business, whatever that looks like over a period of time. I would be interested in speaking to that individual and understanding what they've done. Um, the other thing I'll say is sometimes it's hard to find a mentor. Sometimes it's a confidence thing as well, going and asking people, speaking to them. Some people want to do it, they don't want to do it. Of course, there's various schemes that you can get involved within to find them. But quite honestly, the University of YouTube I have found to be a phenomenal mentor. And I listen to stuff every single day from some of the biggest thought leaders around the world and literally take notes every single day and kind of have an accountability check in with myself once a week. So that is another way around it if you are struggling maybe to access a mentor or the right kind of mentor in your organisation or externally.
And I think you've kind of touched on one important thing. There's so many tools and resources out there
So many.
now for any stage of a career that you can find out the information you want and the information you need. Scarlett, really appreciate your time. I think I've certainly learned a bit about the mentoring side, which is very interesting, but really appreciate your time and just give an insight into how things work from an executive search talent perspective.
No problem, a pleasure. Thank you so much for having
Really
me.
appreciate your time.